understand.
Yeah. So then we moved to where we live now, about 163rd and Dodge.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And we're going to build a church nearby there.
I heard that.
We're going to try to build about 181st and right off Dodge there.
I'm trying to think of that, guys. See, I've gone to your Greek
Festival.
your food thing.
Well, I was the one that started it. Do you know that?
You did?
Yes, I'm sure.
What's that guy's name, the accountant? Craig.
Oh, Craig Clausen.
Craig
Yeah,
Clausen.
he's the president
Yeah.
of the church. And they're going to have a kind of a dedication ceremony sometime in May. I can't remember the exact date. And
Yeah.
so it's $50, I think, to the luncheon and so forth.
Okay, here we go. What we're going to do, first thing I want you to do is just tell me your name and what branch of service that you were in.
My name's Spiro Moustakes. I was in the Army, U.S. Army.
Why did you pick the Army?
What?
Why did you pick
Well, I
branch?
had a very odd thing happen to me. I had a very dear friend of mine. I don't know if you heard the name Chris Gugas. He was the public relations director, safety director here in Omaha under Mayor Dworick. And he and I grew up together, and we were like brothers, actually. And he failed to stay in high school, and he joined Marines. And then some other friends of mine started going into the various branches of the service. I was in my 4th year of the university. I attended the University of Omaha. In fact, I was one of the first students in 1938 when it first opened. And we only had the one administration building, the only one we had. And I decided to major in chemistry because I wanted to go into medicine, but unfortunately I didn't think I had funds at that time to do so. So I majored in chemistry, and I was in my 4th year, in fact my last semester, and I was offered a job from DuPont chemistry company, chemical company, to work at Kankakee, Illinois, in an ordnance depot. And I had a very fine job to get there. Believe it or not, at that time, we would be making about $1,000 a month, which was very good at that time. And I decided to think about it, you know. In fact, I went down to the plant, and they were eager to get me to work there. I had another friend of mine named Earl Kaplan, and he's the one that introduced me to over there. And he worked for DuPont later. He worked in the dye works later, but he went into service also. But as I said, a lot of my buddies started going into the service pretty rapidly, and I felt that I should also go in. Well, I tried to get into the Marines, they rejected me. I tried to get into the Navy, they rejected me. I tried to get into the Coast Guard, they rejected me for my eyes. They said my eyes were bad. And then I got an offer from the government to work for that ordnance plant, and I would be making probably about $200 or $300 more than I would be making from DuPont itself. Same job. But anyhow, but prior to that, I worked at the university to pay my way through college, but working in the library. So I was kind of a librarian for 3.5 years. I worked there, and I was also in charge of what they called the government depository. We had almost all, the New Deal documents and everything else. We had to get them sorted out in different categories: the Navy Department, the Commerce Department, Finance Department, the congressional records, and then we also had different periodicals from all over the world. We had some from Dukas Reich of Germany. We had the Brazilian newspaper and also the English journals. But we didn't have any room to operate on them, And then we acquired a library from Coe College. We got the whole library and had to reclassify all the materials there. And I was in charge of that. And all we had was a little Quonset hut nearby. And then the WBA came in there. And we had a lot of old periodicals and books that were all very bad. In fact, you heard of bookworms? You could take a book and you could just see the very fine. I mean, there wasn't even any particles in there. It was just clear cut like a cavern throughout the books.
So along comes December 7th, 1941. What do you remember about that thing?
Well, actually, it kind of puzzled me, at the time. It got startled, of course, and I didn't think too much about, the aftermath of the thing. This young man that was in the Marines happened to be on the Arizona, and then he went into the combat area, and he got a battlefield commission as a lieutenant, and he finally ended up as a full colonel, believe it or not. and he retired as that.
How did you end up in the medical corps?
In medical corps, I was always interested in medicine, and I had a very distant cousin of mine, at least I think is, not quite sure. See, my folks came from an area called Smyrna, or Izmir, now in Turkey, and there was a Greek settlement there. And at that time, there was a Holocaust against the Greeks that were residing in that area, and they slaughtered quite a few of them. And my mother and dad lived about 2 blocks from each other. My dad was a baker's apprentice. He was only about 12, 14 years old at the time. And he met my mother just casual, I mean, nothing serious about it. And then when the Turks started coming through there, slaughtering, my mother's dad had quite a few fields. He had tobacco, he had olive groves, and he also had some citrus fruits and date trees. And he was quite wealthy actually at the time, and he supplied ammunition and food supplies to the Greeks that were on the area. But he finally left with my mother and also some other relatives of his. And then my dad separately left also, and he went to Greece, in Athens, and then he came to the United States. Then he worked initially in Bethlehem Steel Company, where they made munitions at that time. He never went into the service. Now, the individual that prompted me to go into medicine, or I took a liking, might say, to that particular field, was a young man by the name of Diamandis, Louis Diamandis. And he and his mother came to live with us at the house. And he was about 4 years older than I was. And ironically, he was kind of protective about me when he came to live with my mother and dad. And there's a lot of animosity against the Greeks here in Omaha at that time too. And so he more or less protected me from everybody that would get by me. Nobody could do so, because he was a pretty powerful young man. But he went to grade school and kept passing one grade to the other. And he got into the University of Omaha at that time, known as University of Omaha, and became an editor of the Gateway periodical at the university. And then he also he was a top-notch student, and he went into medicine. But ironically, when he went into medicine at the university, he was accepted at the University of Nebraska at medical school. He had developed encephalitis and he had to drop out of school. Later on, he had married and had 2 children. One became a teacher, and she still teaches. And his son is a cardiologist now at Emmanuel Hospital, primarily. And his name is Steve Diamandis. And Elaine Diamandis, I don't recall what school she teaches at.
Okay, so you end up in the medical corps.
Right.
Now you are sent to Europe.
Right.
All right. What I'm interested in is when you got in Europe and headed toward the Battle of Bulge. Can you give me some idea of what?
Well, I'll tell you my itinerary first. I was stationed first at the at the station hospital in Fort Edward, Kansas.
Okay.
Then there was a deal that they called ASTP, Army Specialized Training Program, and there was a possibility of getting into medical school. And the officers on the post there thought I would be an excellent candidate to do so. So I went to the University of Wyoming at Laramie, which was kind of a replacement depot, you might say, for the Army at that time. And then they assigned me to the University of Iowa at Iowa City to go into medical school. However, when I got there, the classes were all closed, and because I had majored in chemistry, they thought that temporarily I could go into advanced chemical engineering. And as an area that had no interest whatsoever to me, but I stayed with it, and a lot of the students that were in my class were actually graduates from MIT, Caltech, Georgia Tech, all the various big engineering schools in chemical engineering. They brought them down from an officer status, you might say, to a sergeant. I still remained with my status as private at the time. Then from there, I stayed there for a number of months, for 2 semesters actually, and I wanted out, and they finally allowed me to do so. But they told me that I would have to go to what is known as Camp Grant, Illinois, which is at Rockford, Illinois. When I got there, waited to be transported out of there. When I went to Camp Reynolds, they told me that I would be on limited service and I could only go to two places, either to England or to Australia. Those are the only two. I could never go into the combat area. So anyway, I finally was able to leave Camp Reynolds. I boarded the ship at New York, the Queen Elizabeth. We got to England, and then they sent me to a place called Kidsworth, England. Kidsworth, England was more or less a post that Churchill stayed with his group when he was in the Boer War. Winston Churchill, he was an officer. And then they assigned me to a place in Malvern as a medical personnel. So I went there and worked in the laboratory, and we were so short of personnel, they put me, not only myself but several others, in the capacity of registering casualties as they came off the train and come into the hospital area, and then we also start taking care of them, doing laboratory work on them, and then also they need people in the orthopedic ward, and I worked in there for about a week or two, and there were a lot of amputees there.